I went off for commissioning into a ground branch and then a flying branch. I flew for about 30 years on eventually a Nimrod surveillance aircraft that was supposedly designed to chase submarines, but then ended up in Iraq and Afghanistan doing some sensitive work with ground troops on the international force. And that was a great experience for many ways. But
this is a video that Crossrail done, because Crossrail and construction, we're losing people to suicide 2 a day at the moment. And it's a massive problem we've got. We're trying to highlight, it's all right to talk, but did the guy sound like this?
Hey. Oh man, I'm still waking from the weekend. I need to swap with the keeper. What'd you get up to?
I've spent the last 48 hours staring at a wall. Linda, she's gone and left me. The banks, they're moving in on the house, and my daughter, she barely speaks to me anymore. To be honest with you, mate, I think I'm this close to ending it all.
Hello, Gary.
Yeah.
Good weekend?
Yeah. Pretty quiet. Just pottering, really.
Yeah. You're pretty exhausted. To be honest, I'm really worried about you.
So I just wanted to show you that, because what a lot of us do, we hold it within, and that's what we feel like. And when you said, he started talking, getting louder, when you said that, I went, ooh, yeah, I got a video for that. And I think I know what you're on about, because I do that inside, but I block it off and I just go, nobody wants to know about this, a burden. But you get to a stage where you will come out with it when you're really deep, when you're low, I'm just wondering if that reminded you of anything at that time. Was it like that?
It was the same bloke. It was, I found it shocking, partly because I hadn't seen it developing over the months I'd known him, completely oblivious to that, and how quickly he went from good morning to within 2 minutes gone. It was that quick, and it made me concerned with. It gave me an indication of how much pressure he's been under for some time, and I hadn't known, and therefore there'd been an unknown risk to me and the crew and the safety of the operation and the organisation. There's so many things that came out of it that were good, but also negative. But as an education, it took that to help me understand or start getting more interested in mental health. Because before that, to me, it was 2 words that never really interested me or bothered me. If I was a bit depressed, I'd sort it out. I never really understood it myself. It was a strong indication of, wow, some people are suffering here. One particular morning, we were supporting an operation that involved drugs and counter drugs as a very complex operation. Yeah. And we were one of the surveillance assets that was a key player in the critical point of that operation itself. And I came down for breakfast, everything was fine. And one of my systems operators, effectively the most important person on the jet, is the systems operators, not the pilot. It's those guys. They do the mission. Yeah. And I could see he wasn't quite with it. And when I asked him if he was all right, thinking nonchalantly he's just slept badly, he started talking about the problems he was having at home, not with his children, but with what was called the Child Support Agency. I don't have any children. I didn't understand. I'd never heard of the thing. By listening to him, he started talking, and then he started talking faster. And the faster he started talking, the more angry he got about what was going on. And the angrier he got, everyone around us stopped talking, and I could sense this guy isn't quite with it in terms of operating an aircraft in a complex operation. And when I discovered what was going on, well, I tell you what, we're going to cancel the mission because it's not safe to operate with that risk, given the complexity of the operation. We just scrubbed it.
So
and that led me to, it was the realization of, it was probably the early stage of my career of realizing other people, unlike my background, actually have got some complex stuff going on in their lives that I've never experienced or wouldn't really appreciate or understand. It was like a drop. I smelt the coffee of, wow. To me, he was, I won't mention his name, but he was a systems operator. I knew a bit about his life, but I never got underneath his world to appreciate that. So that was really one of the early stages in my life of how important these things are in terms of your performance in your professional environment.
So Graham, I've got a video I show people, all right? I'm going to show you. And I'm just wondering, did the individual sound like this man in the video? Because did anybody look at him differently? Did anybody treat him differently? Or did they go, yeah, mate, come here, let's have a talk? You know, it didn't make him any...
No, it's interesting, actually. I don't recall at that time there's a significant impact. We just scrubbed the mission until he was calm and more in control, and then we just did it again. It was okay. Where it manifested itself big time was a few months later in the Falkland Islands. We were down there for a bit, and I don't know what happened, but he was found covered in blood in the church. He'd lost it to the extreme. I don't actually know the circumstances or the details, but that pressure cooker analogy, it had blown. And what I distinctly remember, and you'll understand this, in fact, anyone who serves or has a sense of belonging in a team or an organization where your badge gravitates everyone to a common objective. We have a squadron, we have a badge, and you're in it or you're not. It's quite monochrome. And as soon as we realized that this had happened, no one talked about it. We were all a bit, can't mention it. It's all a bit negative to our reputation. And actually, I didn't realize at the time, but effectively at that point, unintentionally, unknowingly, we abandoned him because he didn't fit our image of ourselves. We no longer identified us to him. He wasn't part of what we're about. And at the time, I wasn't even aware. It was a subconscious action. But increasingly, I'm much more aware of what a cruel thing to do to someone who's actually at a point of need. What a cruel thing to do. It was taught me a lot.
So the questions I'm asking now is, what are we actually doing? And there's a lot of veterans out there asking the same questions. You know, we've got all the charities out there, as you know yourself, Graham, which are, we got over 1,800 charities, and they all got their own, doing their own thing. And it's over £800 million, and we can't actually put a 24/7 helpline in for veterans or military personnel, because a veteran talking to a veteran is much better than a veteran talking to somebody on the other end of the phone who they don't want to talk to because they haven't got that rapport. We know how to talk to other veterans. We know how to talk to other people, because we're still family. We've still gone through the same. And we have a bit of banter, don't we? You know, when we're down, we have a bit of banter and we take the mick out of each other. So we can't even get a 24/7 helpline available for, you know, I know veterans are doing it in the community, and they got some veterans, but it should be done by the government. You know, veterans are fair.
Can I try and break this down a bit just to make it perhaps more manageable here? Craig, if just the context of the veterans. Bear in mind, I was privileged to be a commanding officer.
Yeah.
Now I know what I know about the veterans sector. As a point of education, I wouldn't have believed it as a commanding officer. I just wouldn't have believed it was that bad. I just wouldn't have believed it. I couldn't believe that the United Kingdom would find itself in such a clumsy position, such a clunky architecture that has been allowed to grow over years, that I, as a commanding officer, believed that when I send my troops off to that organization, I truly believe they're in the best hands. I truly believe that. I sent them off to oblivion, actually, unknowingly. I actually sent them off to oblivion. That's a concern, but it's a wraparound. Craig, you said something earlier about the CMS, and you said you use it sometimes. It always worries me because it's quite a dramatic statement. So I want to understand it a bit more. You talked about this issue is a national security risk. Why is that? Why? Explain that.
Well, the thing is, as you said, Graham, how can I put it? You were saying that when you were the colonel, you had to cancel a mission, and that mission was to support guys on the ground, right? So you cancelled a mission. Luckily, you actually found a way around that. You worked around that. But had you not have done that, that could have been fatalities on the ground.
Yeah,
okay?
without a doubt.
We rely upon the guys on the ground. We rely upon escort and you're not being able to do anything about it.
From that, you can conclude that this issue has an operational risk.
Absolutely.
In the military.
And it's putting our armed forces at risk. Their lives are at risk because of their mental health is not in the right place.
So you can conclude it has a high human dimension impact.
Absolutely.
It's a high risk. It's a high risk. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And I guess you can conclude that it has a disproportionate fiscal impact relative to the issue itself.
Absolutely.